there, now 6. Therefore, tell me, stability increased or decreased for carbocations? Increased. As I told you, as the number of alpha hydrogens increases, stability of carbocation also increases by doing the hydride shift here. By doing the hydride shift, you can ask me, sir, why you are not doing methyl shift? In the next example, I will explain you that also. Clear? Now, second one, see clearly. CH3, CH, CH3, CH2 plus. So, how many alpha hydrogens are there here? 1. Now, we will do one thing. We will do both hydride shift and methyl shift. Then we can understand clearly which shift is preferable. Okay. So now, first of all, I will do one thing. I will do the hydride shift. Okay. So from adjacent carbon, hydride shift. Then what happens? See clearly. CH3, CH3, positive charge comes here. Then CH3. So you see how many alpha hydrogens I got here? 9. We will do one thing. We will see methyl shift also. Then you will understand clearly. Okay. We will do the methyl shift also. Then you will come to know which shift is preferable. Okay. So if you do the methyl shift, then what happen? CH3, CH, positive, CH2 and methyl is shifted here. See clearly. So now tell me, how many alpha hydrogens are there here? Here 3 are there, here 2 are there, only 5. So I am writing here alpha hydrogens are 5. So if you do the hydride shift, you are getting 9 alpha hydrogen. If you do the methyl shift, you are getting only 5 alpha hydrogen. So which shift is preferable then? Hydride shift is preferable, but not the methyl shift here. Hope you are understanding my point here. Hydride shift is preferable over the methyl shift. Clear everyone? Right. Let me take here next. One more example also to make you to understand. Now, see clearly. This is one carbocation. How many alpha hydrogens are there initially here? First of all, 2 are there. You see, this is the sp3 carbon having 2 alpha hydrogens. 2 alpha hydrogens. So we will do one thing. We will do the hydride shift. We will do the hydride shift. Okay. Now tell me, how many alpha hydrogens are there here? Okay. 5. So 2 to 5 increase. When alpha hydrogens are increasing, stability of carbocation also increases. By doing the hydride shift here. Hope you copied everyone. Clear? Next year, one more example. Okay. Now, this is one carbocation. How many alpha hydrogens are there? See clearly here 2 are there hydrogens, here also 2 are there. So how many alpha hydrogens here? 4. Again, do the hydride shift here. Do the hydride shift from left side or from right side. Any side you do, no problem. Do from any side, no problem. Okay. Then tell me, how many alpha hydrogens now 5 are there, you see. So stability increased by doing what? Hydride shift. Please copy quickly. Followed? Right. Now, let me take some examples of the methyl shift also. Okay. See clearly. This is one carbocation. How many alpha hydrogens are there? First of all, we will see alpha hydrogens. Only 2 at this point. Only 2 alpha hydrogens are there. See clearly. So, which shift is preferable? Methyl shift or hydride shift? Here both we can do. So here also we will do one thing. We will do both the shifts. Then we will decide which is correct. So we will do one thing. First of all, we will do the methyl shift here. Okay. We will do the methyl shift here. So one methyl here, one methyl I brought here now. Then positive charge here. Okay. Now you see alpha hydrogens we will count here. Here 2 are there, you see. Now here 3 are there, you see. Whereas at this point you see 1. So total alpha hydrogens how many are there? 6. If I do the methyl shift. Clear?
Sir.
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 Yes, sir. Tell me.
Student is asking to explain the complete process of. Student asking to explain the complete process of hydration, sir. In the
Complete
third
process
slide.
of
Hydration.
Hydration. A hydride shift, sir. That is not hydration.
Okay.
Hello. That is hydride shift. It is not hydration.
Hydrate shift. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. You tell that student to contact me, sir. I will explain.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Right. Now, methyl shift we did. Then we will do one thing. We will explain. We will see the we will do the hydride shift also. So here you see 2 hydrogens are there here. See clearly. So I will do the hydride shift. Then you will understand clearly what is what here. So now you see 2 methyls as it is here. Now if you do the hydride shift, now positive charge comes here. Now tell me how many alpha hydrogens are there here? You see at this point 2 are there. At this point 2 are there. Total 4 alpha hydrogens are there. 4. So try to understand. If you do methyl shift, we are getting 6 alpha hydrogens. If you do hydride shift, we are getting 4 alpha hydrogens. So which is preferable? Methyl shift is preferable, but not the hydride shift here also. Methyl shift is preferable, but not the hydride shift. So please copy quickly, everyone. Clear? One more example we will take here. Now see clearly. CH3, CH, CH3, CH2, CH2 plus. This is one important example. I will explain. You see how many alpha hydrogens are there here? 2 are there. Then first of all we will do the hydride shift. So if you do hydride shift, what happened here? CH3, CH, CH3, then positive charge comes here, then CH3. Now how many alpha hydrogens are there? 4 alpha hydrogens are there. See clearly. 4 alpha hydrogens. Okay. Now again a chance is there. Again we can do the hydride shift. Okay. So again like this, again we can do the hydride shift. Then what happened then here? CH3, C, CH3 positive. Then here CH2, CH3. So now how many alpha hydrogens are there? You see 8 are there. 8 are there. So first it was, you see clearly, first it was 2 to 4 and now it is 4 to 8. Therefore stability increased. How many times we did here? See clearly, hydride shift 2 times we did. 2 times we did the hydride shift. Yesterday I told you, whether you remembered or not, rearrangement continues till we get most stable carbocation. Rearrangement continues till we get most stable carbocation. So the final carbocation, which is having 8 alpha hydrogens, is highly stable carbocation. For that purpose, we did 2 times hydride shift. So I think you understood clearly about the hydride shift as well as the methyl shift also. Please copy quickly. Okay. So about the leaving groups and about the carbocation rearrangements, everything completed. Leaving groups and carbocation rearrangements. So let me move to the next slide. Okay. And here I am going to explain you about the nucleophile. I am going to explain you about the nucleophile here. Okay. In the last class, I told you, whether you remembered or not, I don't know, that nucleophiles are electron rich species. Electron rich. Clear? They carry what? They carry negative charge or lone pair of electrons. They carry negative charge or lone pair of electrons. Clear, everyone? And since they are electron rich, they have a tendency to donate electron pair. They have a tendency to donate electron pair. They have a tendency to donate electron pair. Remember, everyone, the tendency is called as what, you know? The tendency is called as nucleophilicity. The tendency of donating electron pair is called as nucleophilicity. This nucleophilicity is very important term. That nucleophilicity is very important term. So nucleophilicity, nothing but electron pair donating tendency. Hope it is clear to everyone.
Sir,
Sir, tell me.
Sir, in the last slide, they are asking one doubt. Is there any
Yes, sir.
way to find which should be shifted? Is there any way to find which should be
Yes.
shifted to get
Yes.
more stable compound? It is
Now,
methyl shift or hydrogen shift?
yes, the only way is to find alpha hydrogens. See, everywhere I am finding alpha hydrogens only. Okay, na? The only way is everywhere we have to find alpha hydrogens. There is no other way. The only way is this one.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Hmm?
And
I hope
where to
you
use
copied.
methyl
Tell me.
shift and where to use hydrate shift, sir?
Both shift we have to do.
Yeah.
Students try to understand. Both we have to do. Then we have to see where more number of alpha hydrogens are there. That is preferable. You do both the shifts, hydride and methyl. See, I think one example I took here, you see, in the third slide, in the fourth slide, I did methyl shift here, I did hydride shift also. Where I got more alpha hydrogens? By doing methyl shift. Therefore, methyl shift is preferable. Okay, students?
Okay, sir. Yeah.
You do both the shifts. In both the cases, find alpha hydrogens. Then you can understand clearly which shift is favorable. Now, nucleophilicity is what? Tendency to donate electron pair. This is called as the nucleophilicity. Let me take one example here. Now, one example I am taking here. So, see clearly. CH3O minus reacting with CH3Cl. Yesterday I told you, did you remember? Chlorine is a moderate leaving group. And here the substrate is the primary substrate. Moderate leaving groups will depart only from tertiary substrate. And moderate leaving groups depart from primary or secondary when by doing what? External attack. You see, like this external attack. If CH3O minus attack externally, then moderate leaving group will depart. This I told you yesterday also. Then tell me, what is the product formed here? CH3, OCH3 plus Cl minus. Okay. And this CH3O minus is there, na? It is called nucleophile. That CH3O minus is called as the nucleophile. Did you notice one important thing? That try to understand my point here. Nucleophile means what, you know? Nucleophile donates electron pair only to carbon atom. Nucleophile donates electron pair only to carbon atom. Here also you see nucleophile is donating electron pair only to carbon. So this is one important point to be noted. Nucleophile donates electron pair only to carbon atom. Hope you are copying all these things here. Clear, everyone? Right. Now, one more important thing. So, here, what is the meaning of a strong nucleophile and what is the meaning of a weak nucleophile? Remember, nucleophiles are of two types, strong and weak. What is the meaning of a strong nucleophile? Strong nucleophile means, I am writing you see here, the nucleophile which donates electron pair easily. The nucleophile which donates electron pair easily is called strong nucleophile. Then what is the weak nucleophile then? What is the weak nucleophile? So weak nucleophile means the nucleophile which donates electron pair difficultly. Okay, so try to understand. If electron pair is donated easily, then it is a strong nucleophile. If electron pair donated difficultly, then it is a weak nucleophile. You may ask me, sir, which is strong nucleophile, which is weak, how to know? That I will explain in the next slide. Some rules are there to know which is strong, which is weak. I will explain. But remember, strong nucleophile means the nucleophile which donates electron pair easily, and weak nucleophile means the nucleophile which donates electron pair difficultly. But remember, both are donating only. But strong will donate easily, weak will donate difficultly. That is the only difference here. And once again, I'm reminding you how to know strong, how to know weak. For that, some rules are there. I will be explaining in the next slides. Clear, everyone? Right. Now, here I want to take the next topic, strength of a nucleophile. Strength of a nucleophile. That means how to know which nucleophile is strong, which nucleophile is weak, how to know their strength. For that, some rules are there. Okay. So, first rule. Okay. So, see clearly, I am writing here. First rule. Conjugate bases are strong nucleophiles. Conjugate bases are strong nucleophiles. Okay. Now, let me take one example here. H2O. For this, what is the conjugate base? OH minus. So, which is strong nucleophile? OH minus. Because here I mentioned, you see clearly, conjugate bases are strong nucleophiles. Clear? Similarly, I will take here one more example, ROH. What is its conjugate base? RO minus. So, which is strong nucleophile here also? RO minus. Clear? Similarly, here I will take now RNH2. What is its conjugate base? RNH minus. So, which is strong nucleophile? RNH minus. So, these three, see clearly, these three, in these three, one common thing is there. They all have the negative charge. So, the, the nucleophiles which carry negative charge are strong nucleophiles. This is one small trick here. Try to understand. Okay. So, remember, the nucleophiles which carry negative charge are strong nucleophiles. Hope you are writing, everyone. The nucleophiles which carry negative charge, they are all strong nucleophiles only. Clear? Come on, let us go to the next rule then. See clearly. Second rule. Okay. So, try to understand second rule. Second rule states that electronegativity is inversely proportional to nucleophilicity. Electronegativity is inversely proportional to nucleophilicity. Okay. What do you mean by electronegativity? Remember, everyone, electronegativity is what? It is the electron gaining tendency. Electronegativity is what? Electron gaining tendency. But nucleophilicity is what? It is the electron donating tendency. Okay. So, try to understand here. This is electron gaining tendency. This electron donating tendency. So, both are opposite to each other. Therefore, electronegativity is inversely proportional to nucleophilicity. Electronegativity is inversely proportional to nucleophilicity. Hope you are all copying this one. Okay, let me take some 1-2 examples to explain this one. Okay, now see clearly one example here. CH3 minus, next NH2 minus, next OH minus, next F minus. These are all the nucleophiles negatively charged. But I want to know which is a strong nucleophile. That I want to know here. So now try to understand one point here. Now see clearly from here to here, you see electronegativity is increasing. As we know in periodic table, fluorine is the highest electronegative element. Clear? Then nucleophilicity, what happened then? Decreases. Nucleophilicity decreases because just now I told you electronegativity, nucleophilicity both are inversely proportional. So which is a stronger nucleophile here? CH3 minus, than NH2 minus, than OH minus, than F minus. So F minus is a weak nucleophile because fluorine is a strong, more electronegative element. Na? Hope you are able to understand this one. Clear? Let me take here one more example also. R, C, triple bonded, C minus, then after R, CH, double bonded, CH minus, then after R, CH2, CH2 minus. So here 3 nucleophiles were given and I want to know which is a stronger nucleophile here. How to know? So please copy these 3. Okay, now see clearly, I think you know hybridization of this carbon sp. You might have studied in chemical bonding chapter how to find hybridization. Now this carbon hybridization is what? sp2. Now this carbon hybridization is what? sp3. So I think you know electronegativity order sp more electronegative when compared to sp2 when compared to sp3. This is the electronegativity order. Sp more electronegative than sp2 than sp3. So here I am mentioning, you see sp is more electronegative. More electronegative means it is having less nucleophilicity, and sp3 less electronegative. Less electronegative means more nucleophilicity. So what is the nucleophilicity order? You see third one greater than second one greater than first one. So third one is more nucleophilic because it is less electronegative. As I mentioned already, electronegativity and nucleophilicity both are inversely proportional. Hope you are following this one. So these are examples of the rule 2. Clear? Now, then after third rule. Okay. In third rule, we are going to discuss about the solvents. Remember, in this lesson, we have to come across 2 types of solvents. What are the 2? First one, polar protic solvents. Second one, polar aprotic solvents. 2 types of solvents we have to come across. Polar protic solvents. Next one, polar aprotic solvents. First of all, I will define them. What is polar protic? What is polar aprotic? I will define. Then I will take some examples also. Okay. Now, in the next slide, see clearly. In the next slide, first of all, I am going to define about the polar protic solvents. What is the definition? So polar protic solvents means, see clearly, the solvents in which hydrogen atom is directly bonded to more electronegative atom are called polar protic solvents. So here try to understand the definition here. Hydrogen should be directly bonded to the more electronegative atom. Then such solvents are called as what? Polar protic solvents. Hydrogen atom should be directly bonded to the more electronegative atom. Then they are called as the polar protic solvents. I hope you understood the definition here. Let me take the examples now. Some examples. First one you see HF, hydrogen is bonded to more electronegative fluorine. Second one you see H2O, hydrogen is bonded to more electronegative oxygen. Then after NH3, hydrogen is bonded to more electronegative nitrogen. In this way, I can take many examples like RCOOH. Hydrogen is directly bonded to more electronegative oxygen. Even I can take here alcohol. Hydrogen is directly bonded to more electronegative oxygen. So these are all the examples of polar protic solvents. These are all the examples of polar protic solvents in which hydrogen is directly bonded to more electronegative atom. Clear everyone? One more important point I want to discuss here. So remember, in polar protic solvents, so this relation is very important one. Nucleophilicity is directly proportional to size of the atom carrying negative charge. Nucleophilicity is directly proportional to size of the atom carrying negative charge. Size of the atom carrying negative charge. Clear? Let me take one example also here. So now here you see F minus, Cl minus, Br minus, I minus. All these four are nucleophiles only. But I want to know which is having more nucleophilicity in water. Okay, I think you know water is the polar protic solvent. Hydrogen is directly bonded to more electronegative atom. And just now I told you one principle. Nucleophilicity directly proportional to size in polar protic solvents. So which is having large size? I minus. Therefore, which is more nucleophilic? I minus, than Br minus, than Cl minus, than F minus. And remember, this rule is applicable only in polar protic. Don't apply everywhere. This rule is applicable only in case of polar protic solvents. Nucleophilicity directly proportional to size is applicable only for polar protic. Followed everyone? Right. Now, next is the polar aprotic solvent. Polar aprotic solvents. Okay. What is the definition of polar aprotic solvents? So, polar aprotic solvents means the solvents in which hydrogen is not directly bonded not directly bonded to more electronegative atom. So this is important here. The solvents in which hydrogen is not directly bonded to more electronegative atom, then they are called polar aprotic solvents. Hydrogen is not directly bonded to more electronegative atom. I think you understood the difference between polar protic and polar aprotic. Polar protic is hydrogen should be directly bonded to more electronegative atom. Polar aprotic is hydrogen is not directly bonded to more electronegative atom. Okay, now let me take some examples here. So see clearly, CH3, C double bonded O, CH3. You know this compound is called acetone, which is more electronegative atom, oxygen. But it is not directly bonded to hydrogen. You see, hydrogens are bonded to carbon, but not oxygen. So it is polar aprotic solvent. Clear? Second example, I want to take this one, CH3, S double bonded O, CH3. It is called DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide. If you want, you can write the complete name, dimethyl sulfoxide, its complete name. Dimethyl sulfoxide. So here, which is the more electronegative atom again? Oxygen, but it is not directly bonded to hydrogen. Again here you see, hydrogens are bonded to carbon only. So it is also polar aprotic solvent. Clear? One more example also is there, once you see now. One more example here. Okay, so this compound is called dimethyl formamide, DMF. Its abbreviation, dimethyl formamide. Its abbreviation is DMF. And in this one also you see, what is the more electronegative atom? Oxygen, but it is not directly bonded to hydrogen. You see, hydrogen is directly bonded to carbon. So it is also polar aprotic solvent only. Clear? Now, one important thing here, remember everyone, in polar aprotic solvents, okay, see clearly, nucleophilicity is inversely proportional to size. Nucleophilicity is inversely proportional to the size. Did you notice in polar aprotic solvents it was directly proportional? Now you see it is inversely proportional. I hope you understood my point here. So here I will take one example. See clearly. Now F minus, Cl minus, Br minus, I minus. I want to know which is strong nucleophile in a solvent called DMF. And just now I told you DMF is a polar aprotic solvent. So in polar aprotic solvent, nucleophilicity is inversely proportional to size. So smaller one is more nucleophilic, which is smaller one, F minus. So it is more nucleophilic than Cl minus, than Br minus, than I minus. I hope you understood everyone. So remember, I minus is a weak nucleophile in polar aprotic solvent like DMF. Did you notice? The same I minus is a strong nucleophile in polar protic solvent like water. I hope you understood the difference. Clear everyone? Okay. Now here, from the starting onwards, I am showing you the slides. If any slide is missing, you can take the screenshot. This is the first slide. I explained you types of rearrangements here. Second slide, examples of the rearrangements of carbocation. Third slide, again examples of rearrangements only. Next, methyl shift, hydride shift, which is better, how to know? Next one, again, one example that rearrangement continues till we get more stable carbocation. Okay. Then after here, I started nucleophile and nucleophilicity. Then here, with the example, I explained you what is a nucleophile. Okay. Next year, I explained you about the strong nucleophile and a weak nucleophile. Next, how to know the strength of a nucleophile, I explained you here. I told you some rules are there. This is the rule 1. This is the rule 2. And these are the examples of rule 2. Next, rule 3, I started to explaining about the solvents. Next slide, about the polar protic solvents and concerned examples. Next, relation between nucleophilicity and size for polar protic solvents. Next, polar aprotic solvents and concerned examples. Okay. Then after, in polar aprotic solvents, what is the relation between size and nucleophilicity? Then I took one example to explain the relationship between nucleophilicity and size. Right? Now, let me go to the next rule then. Still here, 2 rules are there. So before going to next rule, just I want to show you the slides I had shown you now. So I think you understood here. Let me summarize one important thing here. In polar protic solvents, see clearly, in polar protic solvents, nucleophilicity directly proportional to size. In polar protic solvents, nucleophilicity directly proportional to size. And in polar aprotic solvents, nucleophilicity is inversely proportional to size. So these two very important thing. Followed in polar protic solvents, nucleophilicity directly proportional to size, whereas in polar aprotic solvents, nucleophilicity inversely proportional to size.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
One student is asking to repeat the third slide. So again the third slide.
Third slide.
Third and 10th slide. Yes, sir.
This is the third slide you see. And what is the other one, sir? 10th one.
Yeah, 10th one.
Okay. 10th one is this one.
And one student is asking doubt. What is the difference between ionization enthalpy and nucleophilicity? How are they related to each other?
Ionization enthalpy is applicable for ionic compounds. Nucleophilicity is for covalent compounds. That both are different.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir?
And another one.
Tell me,
yes,
sir.
Sir.
Tell me, sir. Tell me.
The thing is that asking about phenyl shifter, one guy. And one guy is asking to show that fifth slide, sir.
Which one, sir? Hello?
Fifth slide.
1 minute, sir.
Fifth slide, sir.
Yes, sir. You see, this is the fifth slide.
Okay.
Phenyl shift is only for JEE advanced. It is not there for JEE mains also even. So we will discuss that one in the next lesson, not now.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Shall I close the session, sir, or shall I mean, any doubts are there still?
And they are asking that to say about rule 1.
Rule 1. So rule 1, where the rule 1 is there? Yes, this is the rule 1. So rule 1 states that conjugate bases are stronger nucleophiles. Just to remember one thing. Here I mentioned, you see, negatively, wherever negative charge is there, they are strong nucleophiles only. Here negative charge is there, here negative charge is there, here negative charge is there. So here you see neutral. When compared to neutral, negatively charged species are stronger nucleophiles. When compared to neutral, negatively charged species are stronger nucleophiles. Still any doubts, sir?
One doubt is there.
Tell me, sir.
Why is nucleophilicity proportional to size in protic solvent? He's asking about the reason.
The reason is due to hydrogen bonding, sir, that one. They studied in chemical bonding chapter also about the hydrogen bonding. Smaller atoms will form hydrogen bonding. So because of the hydrogen bonding, the relation is like this. This relation. So which is smaller atom? Fluorine. Fluorine will form hydrogen bonding with water like this. All water molecules will surround around hydrogen. Clear? But iodine, due to large size, no hydrogen bonding. Now can you tell me which one can donate electron pair easily? Iodine only. Because around fluorine or water molecules are there. So fluorine cannot donate a lone pair easily. So this is because of the hydrogen bonding with water. Clear, sir?
And okay, sir.
Any other doubts?
How to find alpha hydrogen? One student is asking.
Sir, I told many times before coming to the class, once you see the Learnity portal, their GOC videos are there. In that I told how to find alpha hydrogens easily.
Okay, sir.
So
okay.
please tell them to see GOC videos in our Learnity portal.
Okay, sir. Yeah, sure.
Okay, sir. So, students,
Yeah, sir.
we are going to continue from the next class. So, before that, read all these rules and come.